Rebirth. Where do we go after death? This question has echoed through the hearts of humanity for centuries. Why are we born? Only to die, and be born again? Is there truly a spirit world after death? These aren't just philosophical curiosities, they are emotional, personal, and timeless questions. Every religion has its own take on rebirth. But in Buddhism, rebirth isn't some unique teaching, nor is it a central philosophy. Rather, it's seen as a natural reality, something obvious to anyone still caught in the endless cycle of birth, suffering, and death. That's why Buddhist scriptures, both in the Theravada and Mahayana traditions, occasionally mention rebirth as a continuous flow of life. Like waves in the ocean. One of the most powerful illustrations? The Jataka tales, ancient stories of the Buddha's past lives. These tales are more than myths. They're living proof of the Bodhisattva's journey through countless rebirths. Growing in wisdom and compassion. Life after life. Rebirth, or Samsara in Sanskrit, refers to the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, a never-ending flow of life after life, a constant transition from one existence to another. This cycle is often symbolized by a wheel, known as the Wheel of Samsara. We can imagine this wheel as a great circle of life and death. A cycle of becoming and dissolving, spinning endlessly for all living beings. There is no starting point. There is no final end. The wheel turns on and on through suffering and rebirth, until one practices the path and reaches the ultimate liberation. The Buddha once said, "Long is the night to one who is awake. Long is the road to one who is weary. Long is the cycle of rebirth to the fool, who does not know the true Dharma." After attaining enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree, one of the very first proclamations, the Song of Victory, that the Buddha offered to the world, was a declaration of liberation from the endless cycle of rebirth and suffering. This verse has been preserved in the scriptures as follows. Through countless births in the cycle of existence, I wandered without finding, searching in vain for the builder of this house. Again and again I faced the pain of birth. O house builder, now I have seen you. You shall not build this house again. All your rafters are broken. The ridgepole is shattered. My mind has gone beyond all craving. I have attained the end of becoming. Rebirth. Samsara. Through the discourse above, we can clearly see how the Buddha affirmed the truth of samsara, the cycle of rebirth, using the image of transmigration from one womb to another. Rebirth, reincarnation, refers to the return to a new existence, whether higher, lower, or similar to the previous one, within the six realms, heavenly beings, humans, asuras, hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, after the completion of a life cycle, or what we refer to as the end of one's lifespan, death. In Buddhism, when discussing rebirth, two foundational concepts of birth and death are often addressed. The moment-to-moment cycle of birth and death. This refers to the constant arising and passing away of mental states and thoughts, so fleeting, so rapid, like lightning flashes. In Buddhist terminology, this is called Naim Sin Diet, the arising and ceasing of thoughts in each moment. Because this process occurs on a very subtle level, it is often explored in deeper meditative practices or in the study of mental consciousness and advanced spiritual states. The life-to-life cycle of birth and death. This is the more accessible understanding of samsara, as it pertains to the full span of a sentient being's life, marked by four observable stages: birth, aging, illness, and death, or alternatively, arising, abiding, changing, and ceasing. Because this cycle is tangible and observable, it becomes the core subject in discussions of rebirth. From the Buddhist perspective, all sentient beings are subject to the law of impermanence. For humans, impermanence is seen in the natural unfolding of birth, old age, sickness, and death across countless lifetimes. Each life is framed between two endpoints, birth and death. Yet birth and death are not the ultimate end, they merely mark the close of one cycle. So when this body perishes, what continues on to begin the next life? This question is key to understanding the cycle of rebirth. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha said, beings are the owners of their karma, the heirs of their karma. Karma is the womb from which they are born. From this teaching, we see that karma, action with intention, is inseparable from human existence. When we die, the physical body disintegrates, But karma continues to flow, propelling us through the current of samsara, whether through wholesome or unwholesome actions. However, karma is not an eternal soul or a permanent entity that binds lives together. Karma is non-self by nature, but it is the foundational force, the central mechanism, by which the wheel of rebirth continues to turn. So, what is karma? Karma is intentional action, or actions born from the mind. It is formed through the three channels of body, speech, and thought. Karma is always tied to ethical cause and effect, to the relationship between good and bad, right and wrong. The key driving forces behind unwholesome karma are greed, lobha, hatred, and delusion. In contrast, wholesome karma arises from non-greed, non-hatred, and wisdom. From this, it becomes clear, our own psychology, our inner mental state, is the very foundation of our karma. We, ourselves, are the authors of our karma, and we, alone, have the power to transform it, to liberate ourselves from its binding forces and break free from the cycle of rebirth. Karma and rebirth. What really happens when we die? In Buddhism, karma is not just a concept, it's a powerful force that shapes every moment of our lives, and even what comes after. Karma comes in many forms, but at its core, there are three main types. Right finger karma of the body, right finger karma of speech, right finger and karma of the mind. Depending on its nature, karma is also categorized into four types. Grave karma. These are extreme actions like killing one's parents or taking lives, karma that leaves heavy, irreversible impacts. Habitual karma. This comes from our repeated actions, the habits we form, good or bad, become part of who we are. Accumulated karma. Karma that builds up slowly, day by day, from our everyday thoughts, words, and deeds. Death proximate karma. The karma that arises right before we die, and this, in the Buddhist view, is the most critical in determining where we are reborn. So why is near-death karma so important? Because it acts like the final spark that propels our consciousness into the next life. Think of it this way. Throughout our lifetime, we're planting seeds with every action. These seeds stay buried deep in our subconscious, what Buddhism calls the store consciousness. But in our final moments, when the body is shutting down, and the senses stop working, only consciousness remains. And at that moment, the mind is usually not calm. Instead, it often falls into confusion, fear, or even panic. That's when all the karmic forces, especially those we've repeated or clung to most, rise up with full force. They form what we call a karmic current, a powerful stream that pushes the soul, or subtle consciousness, toward its next rebirth, in one of the six realms. Heaven, human, asura, hell, hungry ghost, or animal. But here's something crucial to remember. Your attachments, your habits, your emotions, especially craving, anger, and ignorance, they don't just disappear when you die. If your life was filled with hatred and clinging, chances are, your death will mirror that suffering. But if you lived with peace, compassion, and mindfulness, your death can also be peaceful. Life and death are not two separate things. They exist on the same continuum, like waking and sleeping. That's why the path to freedom must start here and now, not at the moment of death. We must learn to let go, to release our attachments, and purify our hearts. As one sage beautifully said, "The world is like a boat, sail upon it, but do not carry it on your back." So what happens when we die? The body dissolves, but the karmic energy, the stream of consciousness, continues. It flows into a new life, shaped entirely by the karma we've created. Whether that next life is one of peace or suffering, depends not on chance, but on how we choose to live, right now. According to the Majjhima Nikaya, the appearance of a human being always depends on the presence of three essential conditions. The union of the parents, the mother's body being capable of conception, and the arrival of karmic consciousness. Without karmic consciousness, conception cannot result in life. This karmic consciousness, also known as Gandhabba, or the rebirth linking consciousness, is drawn to the mother's womb under the force of karma. Once it enters, it becomes what is considered the first moment of mental activity in a new life. And when death arrives, that very same karmic current continues, propelling the stream of consciousness toward another rebirth. That's why it's called rebirth producing karma. Both birth and rebirth, then, are not random events, they are movements within the continuous stream of karmic consciousness. From birth to rebirth, this entire process is explained through the doctrine of the 12 links of dependent origination. Ignorance conditions volitional formations. Formations condition consciousness. Consciousness conditions name and form. Name and form conditions the 6 sense bases. The 6 bases condition contact. Contact conditions feeling. Feeling conditions craving. Craving conditions clinging. Clinging conditions becoming. Becoming conditions birth. And birth conditions old age. Death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, and despair. These 12 links represent the process of human existence itself. And within them, the first 4, ignorance, formations, consciousness, and name and form the core engine of rebirth. In the Nikaya texts, death is explained quite clearly through 3 types. Death from the decay of the body, death due to the end of one's natural lifespan, and death caused by the exhaustion of karmic energy. There is also sudden or untimely death, where life ends before its natural course. In general, death is viewed as the dissolution of the physical body. But some Buddhist schools, such as the Sarvastivada and Eastern Mahayana traditions, introduced the concept of the intermediate body. This is believed to be a subtle, transitional state of existence that occurs between death and rebirth, lasting up to 49 days, according to the Samkhya or texts like the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This view may have influenced the Buddhist funeral tradition of offering rituals every 7 days. Up to 49 days after death, known as the 7 sevens. However, in the Nikaya and Agama canons, the moment of death and the moment of rebirth are said to occur within just 1 or 2 mind moments, so fast. There's no need for an intermediate being to exist. That said, from a reflective standpoint, the intermediate state can also be understood as a subtle, impermanent form of consciousness, existing within one of the countless realms of existence. It too is subject to change, impermanence, and samsaric birth and death. So, there is no contradiction between the Nikaya's teachings and the idea of a transitional state, only a different way of interpreting time and experience. After all, some creatures in our world, like certain insects, live for only a few hours or days. So why would 49 days for a transitional being be considered unreasonable? To die in peace, a Buddhist perspective, to have a peaceful death, that, perhaps, is one of the deepest concerns of human beings. But as we've explored before, life and death are like waking and sleeping, nothing more. Death is inevitable, everyone must face it, so instead of fearing it, the wiser question is, right finger, how should we live, so that when death comes, we can welcome it in peace? For a Buddhist, this means living with a pure heart. Avoid harming yourself. Avoid bringing suffering to others. Above all, live with the deep awareness that life is impermanent. As the ancient teaching says, this world is like a bridge, cross over it, but do not build your house on it. When the mind is free from attachment, when there is no more clinging, not to wealth, not to success, not even to loved ones, then death becomes nothing more than boarding a boat to cross a river. There is no fear, no regret, only freedom and release. The Buddha taught, let go of the past, the present, and the future. Step beyond this life. Let the mind be free of all attachments, and be untouched by birth, aging, sickness, and death. To understand rebirth is not to chase after some mystical concept, but to learn how to live with ease, and die with grace. We don't need to go searching for samsara. It is already flowing within us, like blood through our veins. The cycle of birth and death is not far away, it is happening right here. In every breath, in every moment, the deepest suffering in human life comes from craving and clinging, especially the attachment to mine, and to what I want, what I love. You can begin practicing the art of letting go, slowly, gently, day by day. But if one day, impermanence comes, and death knocks at your door, then in that very moment, direct your heart toward complete renunciation, a release from all craving, all attachment, and instead, enter a space of inner purity, peace, mindfulness, and awareness. This is the essential condition for a better and nobler rebirth. And to prepare for that moment, you don't have to wait. You can start right here, right now, by contemplating the truth of impermanence and non-self. What will I leave behind? The mountains crumble, the rivers shift. I've wandered endlessly through samsara, led by ignorance, lost in the distance.